glory to you, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, now and forever and ever.
Hey everyone, just wanted to start covering a little bit about Maximus the Confessor. I know I share a lot of memes on my Facebook page. Haven't really shared a ton on the YouTube regarding St. Maximus yet, and this is pretty much my first attempt to do that. Technically second. I did one little run through, but I didn't really like the way that the video quality turned out, so I'm using my rear-facing camera now. So the only sad thing is that I don't get to see what it looked like as I go along, but you know, that's fine. Hopefully my hair looks good. I don't even know. I didn't look at myself in a mirror before getting started, but what I wanted to do with this is cover St. Maximus the Confessor's on difficulties in the Church Fathers. Hopefully you guys can see this, because I can't tell if you do, if it's blurred out or what, but so this is one of his bigger sort of books. It's got two parts. It's called the Ambigua, or On Difficulties with the Church Fathers. And the way that the books are formatted is basically ambiguas, or what they call problems. And so I'm going to go one by one per video. It's relatively long, so I'm going to try to jump right in here so it's not like a 20-minute video. So the first Ambiguum, he covers a lot of St. Gregory the theologian, and this one is from St. Gregory the theologian's first oration on the Son, which goes, for this reason, the monad from the beginning moved toward a dyad, and at the Trinity came to a halt. And again, from his second oration on peace, the monad moved on account of its abundance. The dyad was surpassed, for it is beyond matter and form, out of which bodies are made. The Trinity was defined on account of its perfection. Now, St. Maximus kind of takes this and explains what he means. So if, while considering the apparent contradiction, O servant of God, you were at a loss regarding the real agreement, it would nevertheless not be possible for two statements to be more unified in meaning than these. For the phrase, the dyad was surpassed, means the same thing as not coming to a halt in the dyad, just as the phrase, the Trinity was defined, means the same thing as the movement of the monad comes to a halt in the Trinity. For we believe in a monarchy that is neither begrudging of its bounty, in the sense of being restricted to a single person, nor disorderly, in the sense of being poured out ad infinitum, but which is constituted by a Trinity that is equal in honor by nature, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, whose wealth is their identity of nature and the single manifestation of their splendor, and whose divinity is neither poured out beyond these three, lest we introduce a multitude of gods, nor bounded within them, lest we be condemned for poverty in divinity. This is not, however, a causal explanation of the cause of beings, which is itself beyond all being, but the demonstration of a pious opinion about it, since the Godhead is a monad, but not the dyad, and a Trinity, but not a multitude. For it is without beginning, bodily form, or internal strife. For the monad is truly a monad. It is not the origin of the things that come after it, as if it had expanded after a state of contraction, like something naturally poured out and proliferated into a multitude, but is rather the inherently personal reality of the consubstantial Trinity. And the Trinity is truly a Trinity, not the sum of a divisible number, for it is not an aggregation of monads that it might suffer division, but the inherently essential subsistence of the three-personed monad. The Trinity is truly a monad, for such it is, and the monad is truly a Trinity, for as such it subsists, since there is one Godhead that in essence is a monad, and in subsistence a Trinity. If, finally, having heard the word movement, you wondered how the Godhead, which is beyond infinity, is said to move, understand that movement is something that happens to us and not to the Godhead. For first we are illumined by the principle of its being, after which we are enlightened regarding the mode of its subsistence, for the fact of being is always grasped before the manner of being. Thus the movement of the Godhead is the knowledge, through illumination, of its existence and how it subsists, manifested to those who are able to receive it. So that's the essence of the first Ambigua and Maximus's presentation of it. So I want to break this down a little bit, and we'll go from there. So the first real big question in this situation from someone who's fresh to this subject matter might be, what is a monad in the first place? I mean, that was probably the first thing. I mean, I kind of had some experience with it myself, coming from previous philosophical backgrounds before I reverted to the church, so I intuitively understood it. But for the viewers new to the subject matter, the term monad comes from the Greek word monos, meaning single or one. It represents oneness or unity. It's complete in itself, self-contained or indivisible. Consider a single point or dot in space. It has no dimensions, it just is. So I thought a lot about the words from St. Maximus here and reflecting on St. Gregory's thoughts in this Ambigua. And, evidently the idea is that in the beginning, God was indivisible as one, just completely one. But, and for the science-minded type, you can I kind of look at it as like an atom, or maybe an individual cell. Actually, maybe a cell would probably be a better comparison. And I mean, while, if you really want to dig into it and take the metaphor to its extreme, which I wouldn't do, you could say, oh, cells are made up of atoms or molecules, and then molecules made up of atoms, and atoms made up of particles, so it really isn't. But I'm not taking it to that level, so don't take it that far. But much like a cell undergoing the process of mitosis, it ended up going through movement, as they describe it, dividing into a dyad. And it did not cease its movement until the Trinity was manifest as its completion. So much like an embryo has a developmental map that it eventually manifests as a human baby, this beginning state had its developmental map that ended in a triad. And Maximus articulates this as being caused by its will to be bountiful, but also limited in that it wouldn't be disorderly when he was mentioning it kind of growing ad infinitum. So I could compare that, if we're going to continue with the cell comparison, to like a cancer cell going through rapid mitosis. Like, it's not chaotic in that way. There was an orderliness in that monad that determined its eventualities. So the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are then described as having within them the identity of nature and the single manifestation of their splendor. Now, I'm going to have to go into a comparison, and I've told you what monad is, and I haven't told you what the dyad is. It's pretty self-explanatory, but just to be straightforward here. The word dyad comes from the Greek word dio, meaning two. A dyad is duality, or a relationship between two things. It introduces the concept of difference or distinction, two entities interacting, contrasting, or complementing each other. For example, a line segment connecting 2 points. Now there's a relationship, which is the distance between them, their contrast, or how they relate. So as I consider this, I can't help but envision the dyad, which is twofold, evidently, as being the source of the identity of nature, as is spoken just before the explanation of the dyad, within the Trinity. So, you started with the one-pointedness, which was all of the potential of both the dyad and the Trinity within one. And then it moved into the dyad, which had all of the potential of nature. And then, the duality of nature, etc. So binary, ones and zeros, on and off, up and down, left and right, forward and back. Sitting, not sitting, running, not running, doing, not doing, everything. It's this dualism that dualists tend to really like. And then the Trinity sort of adds the character and color that sort of connects the nature together. And I think that ties very well into the idea that we are made in God's image, because that is part of his nature. So there's this sort of objectivism of what nature is, and then there's our sort of perception of it. So I love Bishop Robert Barron's talk of the transcendental of beauty, and how there is an objective beauty. Like, we can stand at the mouth of a valley and see the beauty of this valley with the trees and the water flowing to the mouth of the valley. And we can all have our subjective interpretations of it and appreciation, but nevertheless, there's sort of an objective aspect to that. So one person might prefer a city landscape, but nobody's going to say the mouth of that valley isn't beautiful. And nobody's going to say that this city landscape doesn't have an aspect of beauty to it. They might say they don't have a preference for it, but there's an objective beauty to it. And so that's, again, I think partially to do with our being made in his image, that we're capable of sort of perceiving these things. But in any case, all of this was one-pointed. It all condensed into one sort of aspect at the very beginning, and then began to expand. And we can relate this to the Big Bang, and that'll come later on. But all of this is also sort of stricken by our existence. Like, none of this is a one-for-one explanation of the Trinity. We're humans. We're limited within existence. We can only comprehend these things in sort of a metaphoric kind of way. The Polish philosopher Korzybski said the map is not the territory, and I think that very much applies here. We can only hope to kind of construct a sort of mental idea or abstraction of what we're thinking about, but really there's always going to be a sort of mystery surrounding it, which is the essence of faith. The word triad comes from the Greek tres, meaning three. A triad represents a threefoldness, or a complete harmonious relationship. It combines the unity of the monad with the duality of the dyad and resolves their tension into a balanced whole. In a triad, the focus is on relationships among all three parts, forming a cohesive system that feels whole in a way that the dyad or monad doesn't. So in the end, the way that this works together, as I've been kind of talking about, is that, you start off with wholeness, the one cell, and then it goes through mitosis, and you've got now two cells, the dyad. And if we're comparing this to sort of the universe, it was prior to the Big Bang, when everything was whole in one, and then whenever it splits, you now have this duality of, if this, then that, the cause and effect rule. And then you also have this thirdness that sort of unites it, the sort of fullness of the whole united with the division of the two. And I sort of look at the Holy Trinity as a metaphor for this. So the Father is the monad, the wholeness of the whole. And the Son, Jesus, is the manifestation in the flesh of that whole, which could be seen as the dyad. And then the Holy Spirit is that sort of subjective living within that duality, which, again, it isn't a duality, it's a triadic sort of relationship, but within it, there is a wholeness, a dualistic, and a Trinitarian sort of existence, since the one, the two, and the three are all a part of the whole. And so, because it takes one and two to get to three. So, of course, within the definition of the Trinitarian formula, there is a duality, but it grows in its fullness as the united aspect of all three elements come together. Which I think I was speaking briefly about how, you have your information, and then you're dualistic, I'm either sitting or standing, the up and the down, the left and the right, the forward and the back, the north and the south, and all those things. And then got into the objectivity of beauty, and the objectivity, so this gets into the transcendentals of beauty, truth, and goodness. But when it comes down to it, the subjectivity of I prefer this aspect of the objectivity, this sort of enjoyment of, it's sort of like the sitting in the chair and watching the movie. You know, the movie is telling a story, and there's you, the viewer, and, you know, the movie, the story. But then the viewer has different perspectives that are going to differ from other viewers about what they enjoyed about the movie. Just the same as the monad, now witnessing the dyad, kind of views it and sees the beauty. Now, again, this is time-stricken as I'm talking about it. This is stricken to my mind and then another person's mind. But if we were to talk about it from God's mind, I mean, it would be all things to all, instead of just, you know, to the one. So in the end, you know, this is sort of the beauty of the formula, is that it kind of comes together in this sort of poetic way that allows for our unique experiences, but then also the objectivity. So there's the subjectivity and the objectivity, and then sort of the implications, you know, is if you consider that, you know, the word love, you know, to one person means, you know, affection and accountability and maybe conscientiousness. To another person who has gone through a traumatic time in their life, they see life as more of, you know, somebody being under thumb, which, you know, you can get into some of the harshness of reality and the sort of dark triadic personalities when it comes to that. But at the end of the day, you know, everybody has a different definition for these feelings. When I say the word love, it's just a tool, a word used to describe a thought. And the thoughts are diverse. They're not united in their whole. Like if I say the word love and another person says the word love and we both describe it next to each other, we're going to say dramatically different things. Now, the same essence will be there, or substance of the argument will be there, but sort of accidents of our lives will determine how we go about explaining that and what words we go about explaining that. That gets into some Ludwig Wittgenstein with language games and the way that we've come to understand things, but that's beyond the scope of this particular podcast. But so that's it. That's the Triad, the Trinity, the Holy Trinity in the Ambigua number 1. There will be more to this as we go along, so stay tuned for the second one, and hopefully you enjoyed. Thank you.
For you are God, are holy, and we give glory to you, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, now